And now you are.
Hi, I'm Hannah Carsonell. I'm here today to talk about understanding the emotional toll of racial trauma on students. I'm with Quarantine Racism Educational Services as a brand ambassador, racial equity brand ambassador, and I have my master's in public policy, and I have experience within advocacy and different nonprofits on the issues of gun violence prevention, environmental issues, social justice, racial justice. And let's get started. First, I'm going to introduce our company. So, a little bit about us at Quarantine Racism Educational Services. We're dedicated to serving students, supporting teachers, admin, and parents as well through emphasizing equity and the strengths of diversity in the classroom. We are a Black owned company, veteran owned. We provide free resources. We have an equity course that's currently on sale for $99 for teachers and administrators to take. We have some textbooks for sale, and we also consistently put out free articles, graphics, and videos on our initiatives, as well as current events in education policy. And Dr. Campbell is our founder. He is a former principal and educator. So, this is our team and where we're located. So Dr. Al-Mumin is located in Nevada, Dr. Campbell is located in New Jersey, and I'm located in Massachusetts. So I just wanted to start off with some statistics that people might not be aware of that I found in this research study. So 70% of students of color, which a majority of them are Black students within this study, reported facing discrimination. 40% of the aforementioned experiences were described as somewhat disturbing. I also wanted to discuss the differences between systemic and individual racism, even though they both do go hand in hand, but I wanted to discuss things on a broader spectrum and then individual cases as well. So, with systemic racism, it concerns people of color being treated unjustly within various institutions because of their race due to historical racism being embedded within institutions such as the legal system. And for individual racism, this could be this is instances of a singular person believing in harmful stereotypes about people of color and treating people of color unfairly or in a hostile manner. So, again, more about systemic versus individual. Systemic racism is focus has on redlining and other discriminatory de jure and de facto discrimination practices, which has led to communities of color being underfunded within education. There's a disparity in resources, opportunities, and punishments that are given in communities of color towards students of color in general, even if they're not within if they're at a PWI or and not necessarily in a community of color. And then individual instances of discrimination towards students. An instance could be a teacher undermining, underestimating, or harassing Black or Brown students due to their belief in harmful stereotypes. And there's instances of double standards being placed on Black and Indigenous people of color students by teachers and administrators within achievements, opportunities, and punishments as well. From my own experiences in my elementary and middle school, I've only gone to PWI. So in my elementary and middle school, I wasn't really talked to as like somebody. My teachers didn't really speak to me as somebody that they thought should be in an honors program. They didn't really recommend that for me. And then when I got to high school, the principal was like, "Why haven't you been in any honors classes?" Um, so that's an instance of achievements and opportunities, and then as well as punishments. In my middle school, I faced racist bullying and harassment from students as well as teachers and administrators, and I was told that I should go to a boarding school, and the students and obviously teachers and administrators weren't punished, but I was being punished for what was happening to me. And then the impacts of discrimination on students can be seen in these ways. So I wanted to do a bit of a timeline or cause and effect here. So the beginning with BIPOC students facing discrimination, this results in feelings of discomfort, isolation, sadness, nervousness, and frustration, which then leads to anxiety, depression, imposter syndrome, and potential negative educational outcomes. So these are the impacts of systemic racism and individual discrimination on the well-being of BIPOC students. So racism overall is a determinant of mental, emotional, and physical health inequities. It can lead to issues such as high blood pressure, hypertension, depression, anxiety, suicide risk, cancer, and all-cause mortality. So I do go over this example a lot, but I think it's a good case study to discuss, and a lot of people are familiar with this case, and it's still ongoing. So the Texas Crown Act was created to establish protections from discrimination on race-based hairstyles, such as locks or box braids. And the student pictured here is Daryl George. He was suspended from his school in Texas after refusing to cut his locks, and a local judge ruled that hair length isn't one of the protections, um, isn't protected in the Crown Act. This experience led to feelings of isolation, distress, and anxiety for Daryl George and his family. And he stated in legal filings that the district's months-long punishment has demeaned him and impeded his education as he was suspended from school. He also stated, "I'm being harassed by school officials and treated like a dog. I'm being subjected to cruel treatment and a lot of unkind words from many adults within the school, including teachers, principals, and administrators," which is unfortunately something I and a lot of other students can relate to. So I wanted to discuss a systemic example as well, in the overall disparities in punishment for Black students. So Black students face disproportionate discipline in comparison to their non-Black peers. Black students are given these disproportionate punishments for similar or exact behavior as non-Black and especially white peers. Additionally, Black students can also be punished for their behavior being perceived as bad or causing conflict, and this occurs sometimes in tone policing, where a certain tone may be perceived as bad behavior by a teacher that is being discriminatory towards students. And this results in negative consequences educationally, socially, as well as emotionally, as I discussed. And I found a study that was done by UC Berkeley, their School of Public Health, on disproportionate discipline for Black students. So I discovered within the study that relative to white students, Black students are 3.6 times more likely to have been suspended out of school, 2.5 times more likely to have been suspended in school, 3.4 times more likely to have been expelled, 2.4 times more likely to have been referred to law enforcement, 2.9 times more likely to have experienced a school-based arrest, and 2.3 times more likely to have faced corporal punishment. I also have had an experience that sort of intersects some different issues. Um, so I experienced a shooting at my high school, and when that occurred, the armed school resource officer that we had did nothing, and actually he ran away from the building that it occurred in, while other unarmed um, security people that were also teachers went in and tried to save students. But essentially, the school resource officer didn't do anything. But meanwhile, before this, he was constantly harassing, tackling Black and brown students all the time. But when it came to an emergency, he was nowhere to be found and actually ran away. So that's something also to touch upon, and something I'd like to discuss further in another presentation about and Dr. Al-Mumin has discussed this too, the school to prison pipeline, but maybe could do another presentation or a panel together discussing that from my student perspective as well. So, how can we address the emotional toll of racial trauma on students? Here are some different ways that I did some research on and came up with, and also different things recommended by various organizations. So, one thing we can do is to create a safe space for students to discuss their experiences. It's important to make students feel heard and supported, and can provide students with resources and direct them to resources as well. We want to be encouraging our students and encouraging them to engage in self-care and take care of themselves. And I learned about this app a few years ago called Liberate. It's a free app on the Apple Store, Google Play, and it's a meditation and mindfulness app for BIPOC and BIPOC. So I found about some other apps. The Safe Place is a free mental health app for the Black community. Ayana is virtual therapy for and by Black and Indigenous people of color and brown people as well. And something that teachers and administrators and overall people in general can do with students is just have them speak with and stand in solidarity with other BIPOC students, teachers, mentors, guardians, family, and friends. This is something that has helped me a lot, has really helped me through. And when I was in my senior year of college, I worked with an on campus program remedying inequity through student engagement. And I worked with other peers of color and mentored other students as well. And it was really helpful for us to just discuss our experiences, stand in solidarity with each other, and have different events providing resources to other students and exploring what resources we had on campus. So, something else that you could do is direct students to online and in person support groups. I discovered a local organization called the Wildflower Alliance, but you can join their support groups. They have peer support groups and a peer support line. The number's there for it, 888-407-4515. So they have these groups and they meet frequently. Well, I thought that was something that could be really helpful. And if somebody maybe doesn't feel comfortable necessarily joining the online group, there's the line to call as well. So these are different sources that I use this presentation, and I just wanted to thank you for listening. And everyone is free to ask any questions, make any comments, or to state any concerns.
Well, Well, Ms. Carsonell, I want to thank you first of all for that presentation.
Thank you.
But I had a couple of questions as I was listening that
Mhm.
maybe the audience may be interested in. Um, when you were in these circumstances, did you have parental support? And if you did, how important was that parental support?
Yes, I did have support from my mom a lot, and my grandfather, but sometimes I felt like I had to hold them back a bit, and it was tough in some circumstances, at first, like, especially when I was much younger, because as I've discussed before, I started dealing with racism in schools in first grade, from both teachers and students. So it was kind of difficult too, knowing the reaction that I was gonna get from my mom, being nervous about what would happen as a result. Nervous that I'd be, like I said, I was punished for something that happened to me, being worried about the consequences of that. Yeah, but eventually with my middle school, I did end up doing on finishing online and then enrolling into high school in Florida, and I was in
Mm,
Pennsylvania for middle school.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
So I know you said you couldn't predict your parental support person's reactions. Was that towards you or was that towards the school?
Towards the school.
Okay, okay, okay. So what were some of those reactions? And the reason I'm asking this question is
Mhm,
because, there are parents out here who are looking for ways to be able to help their children, but at the same time not position them where they become compromised. Because as a former math teacher, one of the things I knew was that, once I closed the door, you know, there's not, unless somebody's listening in, which was illegal, there's really nothing the student could
mhm.
do after that. And so that's why I'm interested in some of the things that your support parental people were interested in accomplishing.
Yeah, so we did, we had meetings with the school, my mom and my grandfather, the principal, but that just went really because well, basically, my family's from New York, I'll start off with that.
Oh,
So,
that's funny. You said
they
they'll
can get loud.
jump up on them in a minute, huh?
Yeah, they can get loud. So yeah, it was just a lot of like high conflict the situation, and there wasn't any really accountability taken from the different, like, the principal, administrators, teachers. They didn't really face any punishments.
Yeah.
No.
Well, one of the
So
things I do know is that sometimes they do get punished, but we
and
can't.
as well. Um
Yeah, we
that
can't announce it because that's a human resource issue. So that's why a lot of times it can be frustrating when a parent has gone through all these changes and then they never hear back about anything, and that's because sometimes they put a letter in their file. Sometimes they will have them do some additional training, such as the course that you are a brand ambassador for, which is promoting positive racial teacher student classroom relationships. But I'm also interested in knowing, you have gone on to get your master's degree. You do presentations. You are involved in your community. You're an advocate. But how do you go from being in an environment that's completely shutting you down because of the color of your skin to where you are at today?
mm, I have always felt the most comfortable with the book right on my lap in my hands. I just always love reading, and I feel like instead of, well, I guess it is still a form of imposter syndrome in a way.
Okay.
I felt like education, academics was the way to try to prove myself to these people, I guess. So I feel like it can either have that effect or the opposite effect where it can be frustrating and you stop trying. But for me, it was like, okay, they think I can't do this. Like I told you before, one of my teachers said that I wasn't going to amount to anything. So I'm like, they think I can't do this. Okay, I'm going to show them. I'm going to work hard and study and read and write and show them that I can do this and I can excel.
So the advice that you're giving to teachers who have racial tendencies is not to tell the student that they're going to amount to nothing. Because I mean that situation has happened with several
Mhm,
people who have become prominent. I think Oprah Winfrey was one of those people,
mhm,
and now she's a billionaire. And so where I'm going is that especially for the young people, just because you're dealing with these circumstances doesn't mean that the outcome is not going to benefit you. Because
mhm,
I'm sure that from those different instances, it taught you how to negotiate this racial tidal wave, if you will.
mhm.
Um, what were some of the other things that you did to negotiate through um, the racial tidal wave? Because I like the fact that you said you emphasize becoming educated and becoming
Yeah.
knowledgeable. And so, what were some of the other things that you found yourself doing?
Leaning on different friends of color, um, just talking to my mom about different things and also having mentors. Like
Hmm.
I've had a few teachers and professors that I've gotten really close with and that have really understood me and my experiences and were there to support me through these things. It
Okay.
was rough dealing with, even though I had, the support from a few, it was just rough dealing with, like you said, a tidal wave of negativity, and then like having those few teachers like trying to stop it, trying to like hold it back.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Okay. Well, before we sign off, I just want to say thank you. Very informative. Um, I am really hoping that people would listen in to what you said and then provide you with an opportunity to be able to go and help administrators, help teachers, and help parents, but most importantly, help the students
Mhm,
because you have direct experiences
mhm,
and you have a high level of success in this society. And so people need to hear your story. You may even, and I'm just going to put it out there, you may even consider writing a book about it. Um,
yeah, a lot. I've
and
had
s-
professors say that to me, but you should write a book. Yeah.
well, you talked about, you always wanted a book in your lap, and
Yeah.
so that's an opportunity for some students who are going through the same thing, especially like that young kid down in Texas with the Crown
Mhm,
Act. I know he had to be devastated.
yeah.
Now, the bigger problem is I think they went with that because he probably was carrying rice in his cornrows and, vegetables. That's what they used to do, right?
They they, um, they checked at the airport this one time, they checked my bun. They checked my bun for what I had my earrings, I had left my earrings in
Uh-huh.
accidentally, and they started checking my bun and I'm like, "I don't even have that much hair. What am I gonna hide in there?"
Oh, oh, they probably were jealous. That's what it was. Because they can't get curly hair. But that's another discussion. So look, once again, thank you, and we're looking forward to you presenting other topics as well.
Thank you.
You mentioned,
And I have our contact information on here as well for anybody that wants to reach out.
so you want to provide your contact information one more time?
Yes, so my email is hcarcinell@gmail.com. That's HKARCINELL@gmail.com. And then my LinkedIn is my name, Hannah Carcinell. And then my referral link is quarantineracism.com/ref equals Hannah. And Dr. Campbell's information is on there as well. And so is Dr. Al-Mumin's and the Quarantine Racism General accounts.
Okay, then. All right. Well, once again, thank you. Have a great evening. Have a super day tomorrow.
Thank you.
And thank you for this very important information.
You're welcome. Thank you.